Welcome back to Live from Paris. Owen's here now for a business update. Hello again, Owen. A look at the markets. The Nikkei's closed down 1.5%, so no Christmas cheer so far in Japan then.
Yeah, I think most investors have all but given up any hope of any sort of pre-Christmas rally, certainly there. And of course, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty with the death, as you've been talking about, of Kim Jong-il in North Korea, what that means for countries like China and, of course, its southern neighbour, particularly China, in terms of its trading opportunities. That said, the Shanghai Composite and the Hang Seng have both come down a little bit off the initial losses they were racking up this Monday's trading session. The Hang Seng, though, still trading around 1.5% down. The Shanghai in similar sort of territory. And as Claire said there, the Nikkei finishing the day around 1.3%, around 1.5% down. Let's just take a look at Olympus's share price as well. The Japanese camera maker, its share price off by 7%. Again this Monday. You can see there the price over the last 3 months. Remember, Olympus has lost some 80% of its market value, all as a result of those allegations of false accounting dating back to the 1990s. There are reports that prosecutors will enter the premises of Olympus at some point this week as part of an ongoing investigation into that whole false accounting situation. So Olympus's share price back below 1,000 yen this Monday.
Now, Mario Draghi is giving his first address to the European Parliament since taking over the European Central Bank. That's happening a little bit later. Do we already, though, have a taster of what he might say?
Yeah, and perhaps a little bit more candid. It's hard to imagine that Europe's top banker will be quite as candid when he's addressing parliamentarians, which he will do later this Monday. He's spoken to the FT before giving this address and really broken one of the kind of first taboos of central bankers, which is do not discuss the breakup of the Eurozone. It's true to say Draghi did not say that the euro will fail, but he certainly evoked the kind of scenario and the kind of costs involved in a potential breakup of the European single currency. We just had there one of the lines that interested me, really Mario Draghi confirming now that bonds are actually more risky than equities these days, as if we didn't know that. He says assets which were considered absolutely safe are now viewed as potentially unsafe, and also reminding us that this whole loss of confidence in the Eurozone dates back a good 10 years or so when countries like Greece effectively cooked the books a little bit in terms of their budgets to get into the euro.
Right, let's stay with banking because later this Monday, the British government will tell Parliament it plans to split them into separate retail and investment operations. Ministers say the reforms will make UK banks safer by keeping customer deposits away from risky deals. But the changes will have huge implications for the City of London at a time when its preeminence as a leading financial centre is being questioned. Siobhan Silk has more.
Shaking up the banks. The British government is giving its full backing to the Vickers report, the conclusion of the Independent Banking Commission launched in the wake of the credit crisis. Its top recommendation: force lenders to separate their retail arms and riskier investment divisions. The aim of the so-called ring fence is to protect ordinary customers in the event of a crash and to save taxpayers money. In 2008, the government had to nationalise Northern Rock and bail out Lloyds and RBS, pumping billions of pounds into the troubled banks.
Our big banks were at the very centre of the financial crisis, what the Europeans call, Anglo-Saxon financial capitalism. It needs reform.
The Vickers report says banks should have until 2019 to implement the changes, but the government wants to complete the legislation within 3 years.
We're going to get on with it. It's got to be done. We can't have a position where the big banks are too big to fail, where there's a taxpayer subsidy, so we're going to deal with that problem.
The country's biggest banks are lobbying against the reform. Among other complaints, they say it will make it harder to lend to businesses and individuals and that it will cost too much, more than the £4 to £7 billion estimated by the Vickers report. They also insist it will drive banking business out of the UK.
Well, we had an insight there into the government's thinking in the UK, Claire, but we'll get the full details when the Chancellor George Osborne addresses the UK Parliament a little later this Monday. We'll stay in the UK at the moment because the French and the British, no one does handbags quite like them. And so we've seen that certainly in the tail end of last week where the UK and France were openly trading insults about who was the most indebted and who deserved to be downgraded. I get the sense perhaps that the British have decided the French are on the canvas a little bit on this one. Over the weekend, Fitch, the last rating agencies to put the rating agency, I should say, to put France on negative credit outlook. That's potentially saying that the French could be downgraded within the next 2 years or so. The UK Deputy Prime Minister decided enough is enough. It's time to bury the hatchet and kiss and make up in time for Christmas. The UK's Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg said that this dispute over who deserved to be downgraded first was doing neither country any good. Here's Nick Clegg.
Well, look, I think, in a sense, we could carry on day in, day out playing this sort of game of this sort of beauty contest between one economy and the other. I don't think it helps. I don't think it helps any economy. I don't think it helps any government. And that was something that was fully recognised by the French Prime Minister when I spoke to him a couple of days ago. So I just think we need to kind of calm the rhetoric and move on.
Next, a crossroads for Ireland. The Republic is one of the 26 EU countries that's supposed to be on board for closer tax and budget controls, but the so-called fiscal compact has to be put to a referendum with no guarantee voters will go for it. That's partly because many see the issue as a choice between closer EU integration or siding with Britain, its Eurosceptic neighbour and largest trading partner. Hervé Amoric reports from Dublin.
At the Christmas market, Ireland embraces the tradition of its continental neighbours. In Europe, Ireland has found an ally in its nearest neighbour, Britain, with a common dislike for tax harmonisation. But soon, people may have to make a choice between the old ties and the Eurozone.
Our choice was made, in effect, when we joined the Euro in 1999 without Britain, and that's where we've put our money, and that's where we will stay.
For the government, any referendum on the EU fiscal pact would essentially be a vote on Ireland's continued Euro membership.
If there is a referendum, I think that the question on the table will be one of vital national importance, and I'm certainly confident that the Irish people will see the need to move forward within the Eurozone to put in place rules that will underpin and stabilise our currency, and for that reason I would be confident.
Now a sizable opposition party, Sinn Féin has campaigned against all EU treaties and rejects the fiscal pact.
Well, Sinn Féin would recommend that the people vote no, because there is no solution for this economic crisis within that, and we hand over more of our economic sovereignty to those who have failed us already.
Declan Ganley campaigned for a no vote on Lisbon. He now wants a completely new EU treaty.
I would say that treaty change should include ensuring that we have not just economic governance of the Union, and we definitely need fiscal union, but that system of government in the European Union is democratically accountable to all of the people of Europe.
With austerity measures now dictated by Europe and the IMF, the outcome of a referendum here would be far from certain.
OK, let's move across the Atlantic now to get a little bit more of the day's news now. A proposed tax break for 160 million US workers is in jeopardy after running into opposition from Republicans. The deal that could last for up to a year is the main sticking point in a package of spending measures worth nearly $1 trillion that are aimed at keeping the US budget in check. If Republicans and Democrats can't reach a compromise, the 2% tax break will expire by the end of this year.
Qantas has reached a 3-year agreement with its main engineering union. It's the first deal since the Australian airline and staff were forced into arbitration to settle a strike that led to the temporary grounding of its entire fleet last month. The deal will give around 1,600 engineers a 3% rise for each year of the agreement.
And Shell has been given permission to drill off the coast of oil-rich Alaska. A subsidiary of the Anglo-Dutch oil giant will be allowed to drill 6 potential wells from next summer, though it will have a reduced timetable to cater for clearing up any potential spills. Exploratory drilling in Alaska has been a political hot potato in the United States. Environmental groups say it threatens wildlife and the subsistence lifestyle of native Alaskans.
All right, thanks very much for that, Owen, and thank you for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24. More news coming up in just a couple of minutes.